Hello everybody, JGC Anime here. Today we're going to be reviewing Engaged to The Unidentified. So an honest thing that I have to admit here today, I actually started this series a little while ago, and I tried watching. I got like 3 episodes in, and then I just never got back to it for the longest time. So about a week ago I decided to just rewatch the episodes I'd seen before and watch the rest of the series. So today I'm going to be giving my full opinion on the full first season. So yeah, without further ado, let's just hop right into this. So, what is the premise for this show? Basically, the girl, Komani Yonamori, I hope I read that right, is now celebrating her birthday. I believe she is now, it's her birthday to celebrate. She is now of legal age for marriage. And as it's her birthday, she then gets the news that she has been engaged to a boy named Hakia Mitsumin. And after that, he just shows up along with his sister, and them and everyone else start living their lives together. There are also a few other characters who I could talk about as well, but that is just the premise. Again, we're going over the story summary. So yeah, this the daily life of these characters now having to live together as Kobani is engaged to Hakia. So let's go into what I like and dislike. Honestly, I really like the wholesome moments in this show, despite there not being too many that really hit home. Like in the feels, like some other shows I've seen that just really hit me in the feels. It was still fun to watch these interactions between these characters, especially with how Kobani is not against kind of being with Hakia in the story, but she's still hesitant, and that kind of gives her more development as a character, kind of showing how much she's trying to learn to grow, and I really like that. There are a few things I kind of dislike, such as its really weird way of doing the romance stuff, because honestly, the romantic element is probably one of the weakest parts of this story. It's very weirdly developed, and I can't say that there's too many moments that feel like they fit right. A majority of them felt a bit awkward and stiff, like, okay, we're doing this now, I guess. And then there's one other thing I can definitely say I really like is its animation. There is a lot of really good animation in this show. Like, I am astounded how well so much of this is animated, especially the intro. The intro is just incredible with its animation, especially like in the opening scene at least. In the opening scene where Kobani and Hakia's sister Mitsumin and Kobani's sister Benio are just dancing at the beginning. It's honestly really well animated, and honestly, I really liked a lot of these episodes, not just because they're animation, but because the animation definitely was a very well done thing for what is meant to be more of a slice of life. As well as the fact I really liked the mystery-like element. I know I'm saying like and other words a lot, but I really enjoyed the mystery element kind of in this series, as it doesn't really try to hide the mystery, but it's there because it hints at stuff about Hakia, Mitsumin, and another character who gets introduced, which I could talk about in the spoiler section, where you're just like, you know what, this isn't making too much sense at first, but it eventually does make a lot of sense once another character kind of talks about it. But overall, I definitely like how they kept things like a mystery at first, not really trying to reveal too much, and hinting out there might be more than meets the eye to these characters. And some spoiler-free thoughts, I had a pretty good time. There were a few bits of comedy that weren't like too funny. For one, the character Benio, Kobani's sister, has a huge like sister complex where she constantly wants to be surrounded by her sisters, and thus she's always trying to mess around with Kobani and Mitsumin, because Mitsumin, since she is Hakia's sister, is technically sister-in-law because Hakia is marrying Kobani. Benio is probably one of the weird parts of the show where I can't say she's the worst, but I can't say she's the best either. Like, her comedy could sometimes be very hit and miss, and it's just really hard to really pin her down because she's probably the most unique character in the cast in terms of like personality, which I get. That's what she's meant to be, like a big siscon who is constantly trying to be around her two sisters, her sister and her sister-in-law. It's a very interesting bit with her character. There are a few characters I actually wish got more like detail, which actually I'm very surprised. When I saw some of the stuff for the show, I thought Hakia was going to be a very underplayed character. I thought he was going to be very like sideline. He'll only pop in here and there. The main storyline would focus on Kobani, Mitsumi, and Benio due to how all of the stuff from the outro and intro, or OP and ED, were trying to state. But he's a very consistent character throughout the story, and while he may not be there like specifically in the spotlight, I get why, because he's a very emo-like character. He's kind of like Ishigami from Love is War, except not as negative, who he tries to be as positive as he can, but he's a very like calm, collected person, which really adds to his personality, and it makes him feel very unique. There's also a few characters in this I can't really say that I think much of, like the character, I think it's Nico Ono or something like that, who literally just is a newspaper lady who's trying to get a scoop on things. The generic photographer character, where she's fine, but out of everyone, she's probably the most forgettable. But I don't really have much to talk about her, so we can move past her. So yeah, there's a few other things I do want to discuss, but that would probably have to require the spoiler section to do so. So here's a timestamp. We're going to enter the spoiler section, and once the spoiler section ends, we'll go to the conclusion. However, I would like to say, if you have seen Engaged to the Unidentified, I recommend sticking around for the spoiler section to hear my final thoughts on this series. So, and my final thoughts, I mean, like, you know what I mean. Just my personal thoughts during the actual show. So yeah, we're going to count down from 5 and share some spoiler thoughts, I guess. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. So moving back to the mystery elements, it's a thing that I want to talk about. It's how Hakuya and Mitsumi, or Mashiro, however you want to kind of pronounce it. I keep saying Mitsumi, but it's Mashiro normally. Their whole mystery is that they're like animal people, where they can turn into animals, where they were trying to keep it a secret, especially after Hakuya ends up saving Kobani back when she was a kid, and thus her grandfather decided to get them engaged simply because, they kind of like saved their life type thing. I don't really fully understand it myself, since the show doesn't really want to explain it very well. It wants to kind of keep that little bit of the characters a mystery. They just kind of explain what Hakuya and Mashiro are, but they don't try to really go too much into depth about it. There's also this later character introduced called Kona Suetsugi, who is like them, and even tries to throw a random rom-com trope of claiming Hakuya should be her husband because her mom said that if she met a male of their kind, they had to wed. But thankfully she doesn't really focus too much on that and doesn't try to push herself in between them too much. And I'm really glad about that, because honestly, that was such a stupid trope. When I already found Kobani and Hakuya to have great chemistry with one another, that I really didn't want to see anything else get into the mix. It was kind of like other shows that I'm trying to think of, like Tanikawa Fly Me to the Moon, which is a series where we focus already on 2 specific characters, and their chemistry together is so good. Why would we need another? It's just this whole trait where I wish that those didn't have to exist in stories, especially when characters are already in connection, because they ruin a lot of stuff. It's kind of like the same reason why I dislike Nezukoi so much. Like, a lot of people love that show. They think it's great. I personally don't like it that much. I don't think the comedy is very funny, because I'm not really big into physical comedy. And also, I really don't like the fact that they do this fake romance thing, even though we know it. I've even looked it up. It's kind of obvious from the beginning who the main protagonist is going to get with. It's super predictable, and I really am not a fan of those types of shows. I'd rather just have the 2 main characters interact with one another and don't even try to hint at there being other characters. Just have the focus be on the 2 main characters and their developments with one another. Don't try to throw some other characters into the ring, because they're not going to win. It's super obvious, so why even try? And this show thankfully doesn't try to do that too much, as it mainly focuses only on Kobani and Hakuya's relationship in a lot of ways. And honestly, they are really fun to watch on screen together, even though it is much less than other characters. At least Kobani doesn't completely unacknowledge him like some stories, like Nekopara, where they had the main character, all the girls love the main character, but then suddenly they don't, and they're just fine without him, which was a really dumb plot point for that show. But I'm glad this show acknowledges these characters and doesn't try to forget about any of them. And honestly, I found myself to have a genuinely good time with a lot of these characters. Definitely one episode that actually, when I think about it, let me down is episode 12, like the final episode. It was 12 or 13, I don't know which one it was. But the last episode of this season, it was kind of a letdown. Like, I thought that since Mashiro and Hakuya vanished, because they like vanished at the end of the season, like in episode 11, when Kobani goes to check on them and they're just gone. I was thinking it was gonna be like some interesting plot where they realized they couldn't stay there, so using some form of magic, they wiped everyone except Kobani's memories of them. I thought that was going to be the last plot point, which would have been a really interesting way to wrap up the season. But no, everyone still remembers them. They just were gone to go pick up something with their family for some reason. Yeah, which was fine, I guess, but it felt a little unnecessarily pointless to wrap it up that way. I felt like it could have had more potential, if that's the right word. But I still think it was a lot of fun, especially with the last animated scene, like the most highly animated scene, at least to me, when Komani nearly fell off a cliff and Hakuya like zipped over to her and caught her just in time, which was personally, I think one of the best animated scenes in the show. Like, it fit really well. It was really well animated, and I definitely had a very good time watching that scene in particular. And overall, I didn't hate this series. I had a very good time watching it, and I'm glad I decided to go rewatch the previous episodes because they definitely added on to the later episodes, and I had a very good time overall. And I mentioned before that the secret was revealed. I forgot to mention this earlier, but I probably should have mentioned this. So I found it a little weird though how many of these characters are like on the shorter side. Like, they have this whole thing where Mashiro and her mom are both lolly-like characters, which I guess is like a thing in their families, kind of, but it doesn't make too much sense because Hakuya isn't like that. But I figure I also bring that up. But that was the last thing I really had to say on the matter, so yeah. We're at the conclusion of this video. One of my final thoughts? I had a very good time watching this. It wasn't the best thing I've ever seen. However, it was nice and somewhat wholesome, and I think I had a pretty good time. I say think because some episodes I wasn't too sure. But I still think I managed overall, and that's why I think that I've been saying I think a lot. Yeah. So I'm going to give this review rating already. That's why I give this anime 8 out of 10. I had a very good time watching this, and I don't regret it. It was fun, and I'm glad I went back to check it out because it was way more fun when I was able to just chill, sit down, and relax and watch the show. And yeah, that's all I really have to say. So thank you all for watching. If you're new to the JGC anime channel, subscribe. I always welcome new anime fans to the channel. And yeah, I will see you all around. Peace.